Hello and welcome to the Voices of Experience, Sustainability in the Snow Sports Industry program. Please welcome to the virtual stage Associate Dean of Undergraduate Programs and our moderator for today's panel discussion, Dr. Trisha Olsen.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Trisha Olsen. I'm the Associate Dean for Undergraduate Programs and an Associate Professor in the Department of Business Ethics and Legal Studies here at the Daniels College of Business. Thank you for joining us for Voices of Experience today. We are excited to welcome our panelists to what I'm sure will be a great conversation about sustainability efforts within the snow industry. Before I welcome our panel, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor and just cover a few logistics. I'd like to thank US Bank for sponsoring Voices of Experience. VOE would not be possible without their sustained support, and we're very grateful. This session is being recorded and will be available on the Voices of Experience and DU Connected website in the near future. As you can see, you'll be muted during the program. However, we want this to be as interactive as possible, so please utilize the question and answer feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen to post your questions, and we'll try to get to as many of those as possible at the end of the program. Now, I'm delighted to introduce our panel. First, I'd like to welcome Mike Kaplan, who's a Daniels MBA alumnus and CEO of Aspen Skiing Company. ASC operates the on-mountain restaurants in the four mountains in the Aspen Snowmass area, which includes Snowmass, Aspen Mountain, Aspen Highlands, and Buttermilk, as well as the five-star, five-diamond property, the Little Nell, and the Limelight Hotel properties, which operate in Aspen, Snowmass, and Ketchum, Idaho. Mike has a remarkable reputation for his commitment and passion to corporate culture, community, and corporate responsibility. Last year, Mike was recognized by the governor with a Corporate Citizenship Award. And when we invited Mike to participate in VOE, we knew it needed to be a discussion about sustainability, as he is a true leader in this space, and we're so grateful to have him here today. So thank you for joining us, Mike. Next, I will welcome Nick Sargent, who's the president of Snow Sports Industries of America. SIA is the national not-for-profit member-owned trade association, which represents suppliers and service providers of consumer outdoor winter sports with constituents in the retailer and resort communities. SIA delivers invaluable education, data and research, marketing products, government affairs representation, services, and programs to their members to help them support business decisions in the industry. Prior to joining SIA, Sargent led partnership and marketing initiatives for Burton Snowboards as Vice President of Global Business and Alliance for more than 11 years. He also held the Strategic Alliance Manager position for the Adidas Salomon company. Sargent is deeply rooted in the snow sports community, having developed a passion for all snow sports at a relatively young age. Finally, let me introduce Mario Molina, who's the Executive Director of POW, or Protect Our Winters. POW is a global nonprofit that focuses its efforts on legislation regarding climate change. The nonprofit, which was created in 2007 by professional snowboarder Jeremy Jones, strives to turn outdoor enthusiasts into climate advocates. With over 140,000 supporters worldwide and a bumper sticker on nearly every car in Denver, it seems, POW reinvests public and private contributions into educational initiatives, advocacy, and supports community-based efforts geared toward protecting our winters. Mario is an avid alpinist, snowboarder, mountain biker, guide, and life adventurer, and he previously served as international director at the Climate Reality Project and as deputy director at the Alliance for Climate Education. Molina grew up in the highlands of Guatemala and has a deeply rooted respect for the mountains and outdoor culture. He has spoken widely on climate policy, including with the World Bank, IBM, the Mexican Senate, the Brazilian Forum on Climate Change, and various additional global stages. So we welcome this esteemed panel, and thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to begin our discussion with some questions to both Mike and Nick to really help lay the foundation around the state of the industry and the broader ecosystem of partnerships, which are really represented by our panelists. And then we'll discuss sustainability efforts and climate change specifically and bring Mario into the conversation. So let me get started. So Mike is our alumnus. We are so honored to have you back to join us for this program. Before we get into our sustainability discussion though, I wonder if you could just give us a quick glimpse into what your world has been like for the past 8 months and kind of looking forward, what our audience can expect for the upcoming ski season.
Thanks, Trisha. Thanks for having us. Excited to be here. And looking really forward to this conversation. Really have a ton of respect for Nick and Mario, and look forward to talking with all of you. So yeah, look, it's been just so fun these last few months. No stress, no drama. It's been crazy, right? March 15th, we shut down. We actually got notified we were definitely going to have to shut down. I don't know, it was about 6:30 p.m. on March 14th, going into our busiest 2 weeks of the year. And it's been quite a roller coaster since then. I think we're all going through it. It's exhaustion, it's confusion. There's all kinds of sense of loss and trauma, but there's also some silver linings, and that's what we're trying to focus on. The slowing down, I think that we've all experienced, the reconnection with family has been great. And from a business standpoint, I think it's really accelerated innovation in a way that really never thought possible. So as we look to the season, cautiously optimistic, excited about some of the things we're going to be trying, really rolling out a bunch of technology to eliminate what I'd call the friction in the sport. It's all about glide. So going right to the lift, touchless transactions, pre-ordering food on the lift, go inside, grab it and eat it on the lift. Those types of things will be great. Cautiously optimistic, as I said, it's going to be different. Takeaways for people, thinking about skiing for this winter. One is obviously wear a mask, obviously stay home if you're sick or been exposed, and book in advance, book everything you can in advance, not just tickets, but obviously lodging and rentals and ski school and all that stuff. And then finally, insider tip is dress warm, because you might not be able to get inside a restaurant and warming hut, because we're obviously going to be managing social distancing. So dress to be outside all day and enjoy it.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, that makes me think of gear. So the next question is for Mike. And Mike, the next question is for Nick. So while many folks love skiing or snowboarding, I'm not sure they realize kind of the size and the scope of the outdoor industry besides kind of the mountain itself. So could you share a bit about the outdoor industry generally, and then specific in Colorado?
Sure, absolutely. First and foremost, Trisha, thanks for having me, and thanks for hosting this. This is as Mike said, a great opportunity, not only for Mike, Mario, and I to be on a panel together, but to share all that we've been going through during this difficult time, interesting time, time of change, and certainly time of innovation. As Mike said, I think the entire industry is looking at ways to run and operate their business in a more efficient way that is going to help everyone get outside quicker and stay outside longer, as Mike alluded to about dressing warm. So when it comes down to the business of winter sports, the overall value of the outdoor industry is $72.7 billion. That's everything that has to do with the outdoor, not just snow sports, but everything that you would do and need when visiting anything outdoors, whether it be fat biking or snowshoeing, skiing, snowboarding, Nordic, and all the above, winter camping as well. But Mario on the panel here, Powell did a great economic valuation. I think it was a year or two ago, but it wasn't that far away, which placed the economic value through the spending of ski resorts, hotels, bars, restaurants, grocery stores, and gas stations at about $20.3 billion. And 20 million Americans participated in winter sports annually. So again, when you start to look at the overall landscape of the outdoor industry, and then you boil it down into what that revenue looks like at the towns that we all participate in, you see how that number comes down a little bit. So just to give you some more local knowledge and local numbers, the snow sports numbers for Colorado, according to Colorado Ski Country, which is the organization that that looks after the business in Colorado, has it at $4.8 billion. And then right next door in Utah, where we are in SIA in Park City, Utah, Utah is at 1.4 billion. So clearly, it goes without saying, Colorado is the strongest winter sport market in the union. And with all that sunshine you all have and those wonderful mountains and that great snow, it's a great place to participate, but also outside of the snow season as well. So you guys are all fortunate to have all that opportunity right at your fingertips.
Great. Thanks so much, Nick. And Nick's coming to us from the East Coast, so maybe he's missing that Colorado sunshine quite a bit
today.
So Mike, I was hoping that you could help us kind of set up the context a little bit today. I think this is kind of a unique BOE in the sense that we have a business association, a CEO, and then an executive director from a nonprofit. And so I just wanted to have you kind of give a bit of context in terms of how these players work together in the snow sports industry.
Great, happy to do that. Well, I think it's obvious as you listen to their bios that all of us, first and foremost, share this real passion for being outside in the mountains. And we're not alone. I think just about anybody in the industry that you put on this panel would have that passion in their core and something that really drives them. And when you think about our industry, you got to remember it's very young. It really just started from a small group of people who went off World War II to fight, the Great War, to fight for, our freedom in the late 40s. And what did they do when they came back? They said, I want to start a ski area. And so that 10th Mountain Division, a bunch of those veterans came back to Aspen, and they started Aspen and went to Vail, and Sun Valley predated a bit, but we're still a pretty young industry. And so we have a long history of sharing that passion and sharing that desire to teach other people to ski and get outside and enjoy the mountains. So we've long worked together and collaborated together. There's almost 500 ski areas that are parts of National Ski Areas Association. There's, I don't know how many manufacturers and retailers and members that Nick works with and represents. As I said, we're just committed to working together. And obviously you can't ski if you don't have skis to ski on, right? So it's an obvious relationship between the ski areas and Nick's group of manufacturers and vendors. And of course, we definitely can't ski or really ski the way we all love and enjoy it. You can, I guess, ski on artificial snow these days, but to really ski in the mountains and have a great day and great time, you need at least cold temperatures and hopefully cold temperatures and snow. And that's really what Mario's devoting his life to ensuring can continue to happen. And so, individually, we're a bunch of probably small organizations, but collectively together, working together, we can bring a lot of influence to bear on our futures and what happens. I think we are all passionate about making sure the next generation of skiers, riders, of citizens can really enjoy the outdoors and do the things that we love. And so it comes from that. I think Nick has done an amazing job. He hasn't, forget how long you've been in your position now. It's a long time predecessor, but he really embraced climate advocacy from day one, made it a core to what he's driving, along with obviously his membership. Also working hard on equity and inclusion and participation. And those three things are huge for us. Participation in the sport, making sure we're attracting that next generation through diversity, and making sure we're ensuring that skiing and snowboarding are available in winter sports in the future. And then obviously POW, started by really Jeremy Jones, a premier snowboard athlete. And his vision was, we can bring more influence. You bring the resorts, you bring the businesses, you bring the suppliers, and you bring the athletes to bear on advocacy. You open more doors and can have, more meaningful conversations, more connections with people to have an influence. So that's sort of where we all come from and how we work together. And I think it'll become more apparent as you hear from Mario and Nick some more.
No, that's great. Thank you so much, Mike. it's super interesting. And some of the research that I've done, I've actually found that more heterogeneous collaboration, like you just described, with industry groups and NGOs is actually a more effective model for creating change. And so I think that's really exciting and inspiring to hear. So turning to Mario, I would like to get to the heart of the discussion today. And so as the executive director of POW, could you give us some insight into the fundamental challenges that the snow sports industry faces with regards to sustainability?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, first of all, Trisha, thank you so much for hosting this. Nick, Mike, always an honor to be on the same on a panel with you. Yeah, I think what I can do is I can provide a little bit of context as to what the environment in which the business and the industry will have to sustain themselves and thrive in over the short and midterm and long term. And I think I'll leave it to Mike and Nick as the experts in terms of figuring out or addressing exactly how exactly to address those challenges. But the reality is that what we're looking at in terms of the projections over the next 20 to 30 years on a business as usual scenario gets us far above the 2 degrees that the IPCC has said is necessary to sustain life on Earth as we know it. So if we continued on a business as usual scenario of greenhouse gas emissions to date, we will probably end up at like 3 or 3.5 degrees. At 3.5 degrees, it's not just winter that we're concerned about. It's not skiing that we're concerned about. As I've said before, at that point, whether we can ski or not is the least of our concerns. But we're looking at significant infrastructure collapse, water shortages, migration crises, food supply chains, threats, etc. But there is this middle ground where we're looking at, okay, if we take action now, we can actually get to a point where we stabilize at 2 or even 1.5 degrees if the action is strong enough. And at that point, what we're looking at is probably some reduced winter season, more variability in snowfall, and less predictable winters. And I think that is, to me, that is the number one concern. If I were directly in the industry, that would be my number one concern. And it's how do we manage our business model in a world where winters are no longer predictable, starting in November and ending in March, April. What we saw, in 2017, 2018, I think was a good harbinger or a good bell for us to pay attention to, when the polar vortex actually pushed that low pressure system far out east and kept a very high pressure system over the western United States for most of the winter, and we had a terrible season. This year, fortunately, it looks like the jet stream is favoring us a little bit more, and we may get some of the colder temperatures. But the difference between epic and absolute crap is a degree or two, and that's when that Pineapple Express is bringing moisture from Hawaii to, hitting the Sierra and the Western US, is that moisture colliding with the snow line at 33 degrees and dumping a bunch of snow, or is it colliding, at 30 degrees and dumping a bunch of snow, or at 33 degrees and is it turning into rain and slush? So I think these two forces that were very, very affected by climate impacts, the variability of the jet stream and the variability of moisture coming in from the western, definitely affect most of the continental US ski resorts. And unpredictability, I think, is not good in any business. And so to me, the takeaway is that the more that as an industry we are able to embrace the science and actually acknowledge the science where it is and prepare and plan based on the scientific evidence, and then advocate to get to that controllable pathway of 1.5 to 2 degrees, the better service we'll be doing our businesses, the better services we'll be doing our employees and our teams, and the better services that we'll be doing all of us who love to participate in the outdoors.
Great. Thank you so much, Mario. That's super helpful to have that context. So I wonder, to Mike and then Nick too, if you want to weigh in on this, how have you seen sort of the challenges that Mario just outlined play out for Aspen in the outdoor industry?
The extreme variability is definitely something we've started to experience and have experienced for quite some time. I think our numbers in Aspen over the last several decades, we've seen 30 more days that were frost-free. And if you think about that, that's a month, right? So basically, winter is shorter by a month. Anecdotally, the backcountry ski season used to be in June, now it's in May. And the problem with that is it keeps pushing up. It pushes into March. In March, for us, is well north of a third of our business, and so goes March, goes our season. And actually, this COVID year was a unfortunately good dry run for it, where shutting down in mid-March was very difficult and really impacted us financially, emotionally, things I've talked about. But unfortunately, we've already started to see that, where in past years, while we didn't get shut down, we've had 4, 5, 6, 7 nights in a row where it doesn't freeze. And those of you who ski a lot know that when the snowpack has water running through it and it never freezes and stops, you get up in the morning and it might be okay for an hour or so, and then it just starts to get punchy and you start to break through and it starts to get too slushy and you lose motivation to ski. So we're dealing with that. We're dealing with that extreme unpredictability where we went with, 17, 18 extreme drought, one of the worst year we'd had in 40 years, I believe. The good news was with snowmaking, with boot packing, with these mechanical interventions and the innovations we've seen over the years, we're able to have a much better experience than we did in 76, 77 when we had a snow year like that, but still really rough. And then that summer, more importantly to Mario's point, the ecosystem was greatly impacted. It was super dry. The watershed was really dry, low water, and we had a fire on 4th of July in Basalt. It burned all the way through the fall. So we're, beautiful Roaring Fork Valley. Should I go hike or bike, or is that like smoking a pack of cigarettes? All summer long, you're thinking about that, right? And then sure enough, the next winter, extreme opposite end. And we had a ton of snow, and we're, as we're going into the winter, it's hard not to be reacting to last winter when you go into the winter, but you can't. You need to be ready for the extreme opposite, for it to snow, and your teams need to be on it and make sure they can get on things early. So that extreme variability, difficult on employee, difficult on the customer, difficult on the ecosystem, and really hard on the bottom line.
No, thanks so much, Mike. So Nick, how have you seen sort of these challenges play out from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, it's just exactly what Mike and Mario have said. The warmer it gets, the less snow we have. The less snow we have, the less season we have. The less season we have, the less time we have to participate in our favorite winter sports. That all has a trickle-down effect right back to the manufacturer, the retailer, the resort. It affects everyone. And so, imagine your favorite company, whether an alpine company or a snowboard company or a Nordic company, they're making product for you to go to your favorite retailer and go purchase it. You can imagine what happens when, like COVID, the season ended early. And all that great snow at Aspen, all that great opportunity to get outside. Granted, it shifted, but it affects everyone. And snow is our basic currency that we operate on at the resort level and at the retailer level and the manufacturer level. So we have to continue to look at new ways to get our members, and we have 700 members that work with SIA, and I work for, believe it or not, 700 buses. That's no fun, but it's a cool way to mobilize all of these companies and get them thinking about what happens if there is a low snow year. What happens, if the winter is tragic, like Mike mentioned, what do we do then? And how do we sustain where we are going? And so we're looking at this, and with every record-breaking year of warmer temperatures, our industry becomes more and more vulnerable. And that's not a sustainable business model. And so we have to really, really pay close attention to how much product is being made, how much product is being sold, how much product can the channel handle. Oddly, with COVID, and as I mentioned, the season ended early, there was a huge bum rush to get outside. We still had a lot of people that weren't satisfied with how much winter they got, and so they were in the backcountry skinning, Nordic skiing, snowshoeing, winter running, whatever that sport is that you participate in. And those are the good examples. But again, that's not sustainable either. So we really need to pay attention on what the environment is telling us and what's possible. And in a lot of cases, you're seeing a lot of our manufacturer members or your favorite brands that are venturing into shoulder season product, whether it be apparel or footwear, bikes, golf clubs, so on and so forth. But honestly, and what we're looking at really is the next decade. So we've got a firm grip on what's happening right now, and we're working feverishly to get through these next few seasons and years. But we have to be looking at the long term for us to be sustainable, for winter sports to be sustainable. And Mario said it in our training call that we had a week or two ago. If this thing goes south, skiing and snowboarding and winter sports, that's just a byproduct of devastation. It's going to be greater effects around food, water, and things that keep every one of us alive.
No, thanks for that. And I mean, for folks who are sort of less familiar maybe with this space, I did want to mention that, we're focused on the snow sports industry today, but this is becoming a more and more salient issue for a wide range of corporate actors, right? So last year, the Business Roundtable issued their statement that argued corporations have to invest in an array of stakeholders, not just shareholders alone. And people like Larry Fink, right, the CEO of BlackRock, which has nearly $7 trillion in assets, has said, and I quote, that they will stop investing in companies that present a high sustainability related risk. So those are big dollars and big kind of commitments to this issue. But just to bring it back to kind of what's happening internally in this industry, Mario, I was wondering, just as an advocacy organization, how have you partnered in these efforts? And if you could talk to us a little bit about what is driving change in the industry.
So we've been really, really fortunate to have a really wide variety of excellent actors in the space from industry, where the values of the people within the companies are so tightly aligned with the mission that we're trying to execute on. And I have to say, like, Aspen has been a foundational partner from the very beginnings of POW, and we've collaborated on several initiatives. Most recently, Give a Flake campaign, which was incredibly successful over the last couple of winters in raising awareness about the issue to every single visitor to Aspen resorts. And more, what we've seen is that transitioning to answer the second part of your question, like, what do we see as changing? I think, again, Aspen and some other brands, Burton, I would put right in there, Patagonia, have somewhat shed the fear of speaking out on climate change for the potential of a perceived political backlash from the consumer and from customers. And the reality is that the science is non-political. The science is pretty clear. 98% of scientists agree that climate change is real, and that it's human caused. And we do know where the solutions lie. And to your point earlier, in terms of big CEOs, and like the CEO of BlackRock, and then we've also seen statements from JP Morgan Chase. Shell BP made big announcements earlier this year that they're divesting. This is not only because all of a sudden they have grown a real passion for conservation and environmentalism and want to protect the climate. That is part of it, but they also realize that it's beneficial to the bottom line. And what we're starting to see is that the actual solutions that we want to advocate for, the actual solutions that we're asking our legislators, the actual solutions that we're asking our elected officials to get behind, make market sense. So the cost of solar has dropped 95 to 99%, depending on the market, over the last 3 to 4 decades. Wind is on a similar path. The levelized cost of energy, which is responsible for about 30% of U.S. emissions and a little bit over that globally, has actually dropped significantly to where it's now cheaper than coal and nuclear, and in a lot of places much cheaper than natural gas as well. Definitely cheaper than coal across markets. And so where I see the industry is starting to change is realizing that the market forces, the consumer, 76% of consumers agree that corporations actually have and businesses have as much power or more than the federal government to take action or to influence action, and they want to see our businesses actually stand for the values that they share. So corporations, the markets, the consumer, and the science itself and nature itself are all pointing us in the same direction. And that is that we need very dramatic, very fast action on the issue and reductions of emissions, particularly in transportation and energy sectors. And the solutions are there. So it's been fantastic when we go, for example, to Washington, D.C. On different lobby trips. And I know Nick has gone with us once, and I know that OIA, as part SIA, has participated in different lobby trips as well. When we go there and we're able to actually voice the experience not only of the outdoor sports community, which is almost 50 million people nationwide, with 25 million people participating in snow sports, that is a significant voting bloc. That is a significant constituency that we're trying to bring together, but also the $880 billion that the outdoor industry as a whole represents to the national economy. Those two things together are quite powerful. And the more businesses that we get on board, the more businesses that are vocal about it, and the more businesses that are willing to take a step and a stance on this, I think the more influential that we can be. To give a sense of scale, the outdoor industry's $880 billion overall contribution to the national economy is more than double that of pharmaca. And yet we have not yet quite coalesced as strongly as we could to have the same lobbying power than pharmaceuticals do. But I think that's changing, and that's the direction that we're moving in.
So your video cut out just slightly. I want to get that statistic out there that the outdoor industry is almost double the size of pharma. Is that what you said?
Correct.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible.
It's actually more than double the size of pharma.
Yeah. So coalescing the industry into sort of ensuring that there's change is an important piece of that. So, I mean, that feeds in, Mike, to this next question, which really, one part of it is, how do you talk to your peers about these issues? And maybe, give us a sense of how those conversations have changed over time, perhaps, as people come to appreciate the threats that are out there. And then the second piece of the question is just to talk a little bit about some of the strategic efforts that Aspen has adopted or will adopt to continue to be a front runner in this space.
Yeah, I'd say the peer conversations, been going on for a long time, and it's been a bit of a journey. As Mario said, we were an early adopter, I'd say, of sustainability. Not the first, but early, and that's thanks to my predecessor, a guy named Pat O'Donnell, who spent time at the Yosemite Institute and then also at Patagonia, and brought a lot of the Patagonia way of doing business to Aspen. We hired an environmental director in the late 90s and started with recycling and came to realize that this was a much bigger, as climate change became evident, that there's an existential issue. This isn't just something we're doing because it's nice. We're doing it because we have to save skiing, and as Mario was saying, to save the planet. And I think the industry has sort of been going through a similar evolution over time. We're made up of a lot of, especially then, we're made up of a lot of independent operators, small mom and pop shops who were, trying to make payroll in a seasonal business where if it snowed and they had a good year, they spent some money on the capital. And they didn't, they played defense. So very, very hard to sort of to embrace a bunch of side activities as it was seen then. But I think everybody, the industry has really come along and started to realize that, again, this is not only the right thing to do, it's a necessary thing to do. And and gotten more comfortable with speaking out on these issues. Again, none of us want to piss off our customers, and if there's a political issue, we got to be thoughtful. But I think thanks in no small part to Nick and Mario's leadership, honestly, made it okay to say, hey, advocacy is part of our jobs and what we need to do. So the industry has been, last fall there was a big lobbying trip to Washington, strong participation. Now you have these larger players in Altera and Vail who are really stepping up and taking leadership roles. So now it's just fun to be part of the movement. I would say that strategically our efforts, as I said, have been evolving. Maybe at the highest level, sort of the business level, what we've come to realize, as I said, almost late 90s, we almost stumbled into this sustainability stuff and environmental affairs, as we called it, right? But it's become core to our brand. It's really become a brand pillar for us, which means it's core to our messaging, our tone, our visuals, the experiences we offer, because we, as I alluded to in this industry, we've always stood for more than just escaping to the mountains and just getting your yayas out. We're founded by a bunch of people that put their lives on the line for this country and for free and democratic civilizations. And what did they do when they came home? They said, we got to start a ski area. We got to get this sport going. So we think it's critical that we carry on that work and do it in a way that's obviously authentic, but do it in a way that represents leadership. So ton of stuff going on. We've gone from recycling to composting. You got to do the blocking and tackling. But I would say the advocacy is where we hopefully have the most impact, and we call those our big levers. So we focus. We do it locally, regionally, and nationally, and we take stands, and we'll continue to do that. And as Mario mentioned, do things like take our national advertising and brand campaign and align it around Give a Flake, and doing something and making sure your voice is heard.
That's great. Yeah, no, thank you so much. So I want to pivot a little bit with regard to advocacy, and then I'm going to have a few rapid fire questions for you all. I know, Mike, you happen to be in Denver on this particular issue, but Nick, I was wondering if you could just talk about your efforts and initiatives that are in place regarding DEI. So diversity, equity, and inclusivity is what we call it here at DU. It's an issue that's very important to us, and I know your organization is really doing a lot to address this head on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the winter sport business is primarily white and male. And I've been in my role here for about 5 years. And prior to that, the last leader and person who had this chair was here for 40 years. So you can imagine the amount of change that they worked through. But our biggest issue is working away from this idea, this notion that winter sports are exclusive. We need to change the tone. We need to change the conversation and make that a very much an inclusive discussion. I hear from a lot of our members frequently that we need more people in the sport. And if you look at the participation numbers, those numbers have been flat for the last 10 years. But I'll bet there's just nothing but opportunity around us. And as a way to be more inclusive and look at opportunity, we made a stance well over a year ago. And again, when I said the last person was in this chair for 40 years and I've been in it for 5 years, nothing moves quickly. And it takes me, believe it or not, it's taken me years to get our industry to rally around this concept that DEI is a way of life. It's the future. It's not going away. It's the right thing to do. And as I tell my staff and my board, it's too easy not to do. And so we've included a ton of training not only for our staff and our board, but with other industry leaders. So I call it the group of A's, which is the Outdoor Industry of America. Their president, Professional Ski Instructors Association, their president, National Ski Area Association, their president, National Ski Patrol, and others. So we're all doing this inclusive training, one, so we can learn from our past mistakes and those that were in leadership positions that we inherited. Two, that we can learn the vocabulary that we need to be successful, not only with our staff and our members, but collectively as the entire outdoor industry. This past summer, after Black Lives Matter became a national calling, we did a series of town halls and webinars to help educate our members on what does it mean. We also worked with a number of other organizations to help us learn what we could do in a pure and authentic way. So it didn't sound or look or feel like we were just jumping in to a Me Too campaign. This training that we've all engaged in, and when we're in it for the next year, and that doesn't mean we're going to stop there. This is an initiative that we've undertaken that's going to go on well beyond my time in this seat, and well into the next generation. But we have to continue to evolve this because as much training as we do, and the way we're changing our communication, the way that we're changing our look and feel, our imagery to be more inclusive, it's going to take multiple generations to help pull this along.
Thanks for that. And I would just encourage folks to look at SIA's website. I was checking out those webinars and they seemed super interesting. Likewise, POW, you guys have a ton of information on your website, and Aspen, we didn't even get to talk about all of the initiatives and interesting things you guys have done, Mike. I have an entire list of things that we haven't touched. So these are the quick rapid fire questions. First, to Mike, as a Daniels alumnus, what do you think our students should take away from this conversation? And are there any kind of, winning words of wisdom that you would leave us with? Because I know there are a lot of students on this webinar.
Listen to your teachers, your professors. I must say that when I heard Larry Fink and that Economic Council come out with, hey, we're going to embrace the stakeholder model of doing business, I rolled my eyes because, DU was teaching that, I was there in 92, 93, and it was really all about that, stakeholder model of business or some different terminology, but it sort of went duh. And so I would, this focus on DEI, applaud you guys for being on that. This organization, educational institution, is looking ahead and really will serve you well during your entire career. And then the second one I think is obvious. No matter what you're doing, make sure you're bringing your values, your passion to the workplace. You're surrounding yourself with people that share a passion, and you bring it out, and you let it come out and speak up in an authentic way, in a way that's true to who you are and what you're about. I've been very uncomfortable, as you can imagine, taking positions, these public positions, going to Washington, right, and lobbying. Mike goes to Washington. I know where anything was, right? But putting yourself out there in an authentic, passionate way is rewarding, and you'll be making a difference that goes way beyond your individual business contribution. So go for it.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I mean, that is something we still are teaching, right, here. So that we have not changed in that regard. So I appreciate you reiterating how that's shaped your own career and life. Okay, so last question for everyone, and we'll just go around real quick. If you can encourage everyone on this webinar to adopt 2 practices to save winter, what would those be? And maybe we'll start with Mario, since he's probably talking to people about this all the time.
Yeah, well, I would say number one, get educated. So find out about the science, find out about the policies, go to websites like the POW website, go to initiatives, like really become well versed in the subject. And then second is take every single opportunity that you can to engage in the civic process. So as Mike mentioned, the democratic process has taken a lot of lives and a lot of years to get there. It's not perfect, but it still works. And it only works with participation. And so regardless of how polarized or how cynical sometimes it might seem that the country has become around the process, it will only get better through citizen engagement. So, educate yourselves on the issues that are at the table, public utility commissions, local level, educate yourself at the state level and the federal level, and then engage, show up when there's public utility commission discussions in your town, show up when there's a call for legislative action to block drilling in the Arctic. Like, actually make your voice heard at every single time possible.
Great. And then quickly, Nick or Mike, anything to add to that?
I just wanted to say, vote. You have an amazing opportunity coming up next week. And you need to vote for the candidate that has the best climate plan. And then, as Mario said, I mean, you nailed it flat on the head. Become vocal with your elected officials in the need to create stronger climate policy, whether it's at the federal or the state level.
Great, thanks.
Agreed. I would just add, join POW, and you'll accomplish all the above.
Great. Okay, so we are now going to begin questions from the audience, and would like to start with Courtney Lockwood, who's a current Daniels student and president of our Outdoor Industry Club. So Courtney's going to pop on and ask his question.
Okay, I think I'm on here. Thank you, Trisha. As she just introduced me, my name is Courtney Lockwood. I'm the second year MBA student and also the president of the Outdoor Industry Club, which is a graduate student club focusing on educating students who are passionate about the outdoor industry. We want to thank everyone who spoke today, and you coming here sharing your valuable insight is very important to us as we make decisions moving forward for our careers. So our question is for Mike. It's been well documented that the ski industry is in a catch-22 with how it balances a large carbon footprint. Snowmaking alone for some resorts makes up 25% of operating costs, and some sources state that snowmaking can roughly cost $5,000 an acre. So you mentioned sustainability is really core to your brand. What is Aspen Skiing Company doing to implement more sustainable and innovative snowmaking practices? And as the CEO, how do you balance potentially cutting some of these sustainable practices in this upcoming year where cash flow and EBITDA is expected to be cut significantly? Thank you.
Thanks, Courtney. Good question. I would say it's gotten easier. Mario mentioned this, it used to be a question whether or not green is green, whether or not being sustainable has a financial return. But a couple things that have gone on. One, really being sustainable and looking at your practices from soup to nuts makes you a better company. It's almost like a TQM, total quality management kind of approach, because you look at all your impacts and you really break them down, and it makes you a better company. Walmart, I think, discovered this, right? When they first went to green their supply chain, they found that those who couldn't do it were the poorer performing vendors anyway. And those who could, they weren't surprised. They became better. Walmart became better. I would say there have also been just a ton of innovations. So that obviously tied to the cost of solar and renewables going down. But the innovations, particularly around snowmaking, we're making snow now with practically no compressed air. Those air compressors are big. Those are the biggest energy sucks. And so to be able to make snow with little to no compressed air is a huge efficiency gain. That's primarily because the guns are much more efficient. You see them up on these high towers, and they don't come out of the nozzles with a bunch of pressure. They just sort of fall, and the droplets and the snowmax and the things, the nucleators are designed to make snow at higher temperatures with less energy. We're also doing things like storing water up high on the mountain in the form of some, snowmaking reservoirs. That does two things. One, it cools the water. Two, it allows you to bring the water up there when there's low energy demand, and then you can feed it down with gravity and use it to supplement your pumped capacity and make more snow quicker, or to do it in a way where you're not using really any electricity and you're just gravity feeding down. So those are a few examples. Sorry to get a little wonky on snowmaking. But again, I would say green is green. It's generally not a trade-off. It used to be more of a trade-off, like, yeah, we need to set aside a bucket of capital. It's not going to have a return, but it's going to show the way towards doing more solar. Now you can really make it pay for itself. And my final example is, we ended up partnering with Oxbow Mining, a company that was owned by Bill Koch. It's about an hour from Aspen, bunch of coal mines over there. There was Elk Creek Mine that was getting ready to shut down. It was beyond its useful life. But it was a very gassy mine, like a lot of, especially the mines in Colorado are, the coal mines. And they were just venting methane into the air. And while they didn't really want to talk to us about climate change, they, along with Holy Cross and some others, we partnered and said, you know what, it's a wasted resource. Let's work together to plug into that vent. We're going to take that methane, we're going to plug it into 3 1-megawatt generators, and 1, take the methane out of the air, huge environmental gain, and 2, turn it into electricity. So we basically are killing 3 times the amount of carbon that we as a company generate. We're making a decent return on that investment, high single digits, and we're showing the way, and we're just a bunch of dumb ski bumps. So, let's get this done. Let's move forward. You can kill carbon, make money, and stay in business forever.
Great, thank you so much. So now a question from our Net Impact Student Club, Shannon Jacobs.
Hi, I think I'm on. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, you're great.
Okay. Hi, so thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. My name is Shannon Jacobs. I'm a first-year MBA student and a member of our Net Impact Chapter, which is an organization in support of various social and environmental causes. So my question is, how could our current reality of COVID draw back sustainable progress?
Thanks, Shannon. Who wants to take that one? Mario, yeah, please.
Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, really great question, Shannon. Thank you so much. So what we've seen in 2020 is we have seen a global decline in emissions for 2020 of about 15 to 20%. The US is on track to drop emissions by about 15%. And so a lot of people have thought, oh, that's great, but that's not really a sustainable drop in emissions when we think about what it's going to take to actually get the economy back on track. And once we get, we get back to whatever the new normal looks like. And so your question really goes to the heart of what's at stake in the next election, as Nick was saying, because it really has to do with, will the recovery from COVID-19 and will the investment of trillions of dollars that it's gonna require be invested into renewable infrastructure, into renewable energy, into energy efficiency, and generate thousands and thousands of jobs that we desperately need right now? Or is it going to continue to get poured into subsidizing the fossil fuel industry, whether that be through, below market pricing for oil and coal leases on public lands, whether that looks like, actual direct financing. There's so many different ways in which the fossil fuel industry has been subsidized over the last few decades in the country. And that's not to say, and I think we have to acknowledge that, for the first 150 years since the Industrial Revolution, a lot of the lifestyle that we live in, the lifestyle that we enjoyed, was actually built on the back of coal and oil and gas. But I think it was Sheikh Ahmed that gets described with this quote: "The Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stones. It ended because we developed better technologies." And we're at that same inflection point right now. So, back to specifically to your question, COVID is giving us an opportunity to really slow down, sit back, and think about, if we have to invest another $3 trillion into the economy over the course of the next couple of years, over the course of the next year and a half, in order to generate jobs, in order to get the economy stabilized, in order to spur growth again, where are we going to invest that money? And COVID is the opportunity to slow down and make that massive decision at the scale that we haven't seen since the Marshall Plan after World War II. We've seen Europe has actually already made those decisions. And in their last $880 billion economic plan, every single major investment actually contains a climate component. And it's not only for environmental protection, it's actually for economic development. So I think that for us to step into the global stage one more time after the global pandemic, passes, after we have, we return to whatever the semblance is back of normal in a way that is stronger than before, we have to make the right decisions in terms of where are we going to put our resources and our efforts into over the next year and a half. So once more, I'll echo Nick, vote.
Great. So there's one last question here, and I wonder, we only have about 4 minutes left, but I think one of the things that maybe is challenging in this space, and we've touched on it a little bit, is just that there may be a disconnect or a skepticism between guests' understanding of climate change and the sustainability or kind of environmentally oriented steps that you're taking. And so how do you connect with people on that point? And possibly this viewer or this attendee wanted to know because they're struggling to communicate in their own circles, perhaps. So how do you have those hard conversations? And Nick, I saw you unmute, so why don't we start there?
Yeah, I think I can answer this one very well. This is a situation that I find myself in frequently with our members. And as I mentioned, we have over 700 members. I could probably fairly say about 10 to 20 of our members are actually doing something in the space, engaging themselves. You have another 100 brands that would like to do something, but don't know what to do. And then unfortunately, you have the remainder of the membership that thinks it's someone else's problem. And so, we find ourselves in a very delicate situation where we have to appease to all our members, but we have to do what's right. And that's why we have this association. And as I mentioned earlier, my predecessor wasn't willing to engage in this conversation because there was a political impact to the membership. There was an economical impact to our membership as well, and he wasn't willing to rock the boat. Neither here nor there at this point. But what we have done, and we have to play a very Geneva role in everything we do. But we've made a firm commitment to the future of our industry to beat climate change. We've subsequent to this, my team is having another webinar as we speak, where we're launching our climate platform called Climate United. And this is our initiative to unite the winter outdoor industry around a meaningful climate action and actions. And that goes as far as those that want to dip their toe in the small end of the pool, or those that want to jump off the big board into the deep end. And it's a complimentary program for those that want to engage at a higher level. We suggest and push them towards POW as a great way for them to learn what they can do. But if they're just trying to get started, we provide them the tools and the resources to get their company and give that company the ability to start the process. And when I say, to start the process, we have more companies that are unwilling to start the process. So we're fighting that battle. But we've taken the initiative. We're asking for forgiveness rather than permission. We're introducing it to our members, and we're continuing to ring the bell that without this initiative, they don't have a business. Their business is threatened. And what's more important to them at that juncture.
Great, thank you so much. So I'm reminded of John Holdren, who's a professor of environmental policy at Harvard. His quote, he says, "We basically have three choices: mitigation, adaptation, and suffering. We're going to do some of each. The question is what mix it's going to be." And so I think that's kind of a nice way of thinking about there's agency here. And so hopefully people will take steps to make their voices heard. So I hope everybody enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Thank you all so much for joining us today. And I just want to announce that we are going to have another VOE event on November 11th. It's a discussion around making equity the priority in diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we're going to have DEI leaders from NBC Universal, Ball Corp, and Newmont join us for this important conversation. And so we'll follow up with anybody who participated today with additional information about how to register for that. So thank you all so much. I so wish we were in person and could continue this conversation further, but maybe we'll meet up on the mountain someday. Thanks, everyone.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so very much.
Have a great day.